You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 3-7 of the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be back. We're well past the halfway point of the season now, so plenty to talk about, and some good games over the last few weeks, and some big ones coming up.
Thankfully, in years past, this actually was the halfway point of the season for the Bulldogs.
I should have been more clear. Regular season.
Yeah, way past the halfway point.
Yeah, I hope it's not the
season.
halfway point of this one either.
Yeah, that'd be great. If we're into week 14, things are going pretty good for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
But actually, we're here tonight to talk about good things going for the Bulldogs, because now 2 straight shows where we are broadcasting without a loss.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot more fun, and it's great to do interviews. And I think some of them are picking up on it, that we only do the interviews after wins. So,
yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it, so they should know. But,
right.
They kind of, after they break their post-game huddle and they see me standing on the field, they're all just like, all right, who's it going to be? Who's up next? And it's usually 2. We like to do them in pairs. I think they're more comfortable when someone else is speaking with them. And we have actually 3 interviews to show you tonight. We have one post-win versus Penn Manor, then another from just the other night after the win versus Lebanon, and we also caught up with Coach Dahms. So we'll get to hear from the coaching staff as well as the players following the Wilson victories. So we have another jam-packed show for you that we are getting together literally right up to the seconds before we started the broadcast tonight. Lots going on. And maybe one of the biggest things to mention right now is, 2 of the streaks are alive and well. The Bulldog victory over Lebanon on Friday night gave Wilson their 5th victory of the season, which guarantees the Bulldogs another year more of the long streak of a season without a losing record. So they're guaranteed no worse than a 5-5 record. Obviously, they hope, and we hope, and I'm sure they probably expect to win at least one more game of the final 3 that they have on the schedule, which 2 of which we'll be previewing at the end of this show. So Wilson 5-2, chalk up another year with a non-losing record. Yeah,
so which is just another one of the incredible numbers. I know we talk about that kind of weekly, just some of the crazy numbers that get thrown out. That's a big one. So, we like to keep those going. We've seen, and you mentioned, some streaks, and I think some streaks and records will both get some play time tonight on the show.
Yeah, so that's the 5th. This is the 54th straight season with at least a 500 or better record. We're up to 68 wins against LL League Section 1 opponents in a row. We haven't lost to an LL Section 1 opponent since, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to come up a little bit in this show.
Because of what's coming here in the next week, that's definitely something that we're going to talk about. And, the next victory, be it happening in week 8, 9, or 10, will assure Wilson another year with a winning record, which I believe is in the 40s now. I think we're looking at maybe 43, 44 years.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have to double check my stat information on that. But I know the seasons with a non-losing record, as they say, so 500 or better, 5-5 or better. That dates back to 1964, and then the consecutive winning seasons will be 42 with victory in the final 3 weeks of the season. Right. It'll move to 42 consecutive winning seasons. So, lots to play for sure. But before we move into the highlights, recapping the wins, and looking forward to the next few weeks, we have some housekeeping stuff that we want to take care of, just to remind you what you can get from us, where you can find us, and to thank a few people. So if you want to follow and interact with us during the week, especially on game nights or during the show, make sure you follow us and like us on Facebook at Bulldog Hour or Wilson Bulldogs Football, on Twitter at Bulldog Hour, at Wilson Bulldogs, at Coach Joe Mays, or at Mr_Raffoff. For pictures on Instagram at Bulldog Hour and at Wilson Bulldogs Football. And an archive of all the Bulldog Hours from the first 3 seasons can be found at youtube.com/user/Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. If that's not the ways you like to interact, if you would rather send us an email to read on the show and address, you can hit us up at show@bulldoghour.com or joe@bulldoghour.com. Also on the website, there's a contact form. You can use that as well. And once again, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors. The main one being May's Sandwich Shop, who's been, my dad and company has been helping us out for all 3 seasons of the show. We want to thank our anonymous supporter and all those supporters that have contributed in the past. And most recently, we mentioned him last week, but we do want to extend our gratitude to Matt Cruz for contributing to the show. And if you're interested in supporting the show, make sure you check out all that information on bulldoghour.com. Our next live show will be after Week 9, following the game at Hempfield, which it will be Sunday, October 29th, right here on Facebook at 8:30. You know, I just mentioned it, but we want to say it again. Supporting the show, besides sponsorship and advertising, the in-kind donations, the thing that Justin has made famous here is just spreading the word.
Yeah, like and share. And I know, we kind of mentioned it before on previous shows, but I know some of you have come up to us at the games. You know, we always like to hear your input or, have your take or your questions or those things. So, yeah, approach us. If you see us, send us the messages online, like and share online. All of that, getting the word out, helps us, helps the show.
Yes, definitely. And any way you can get more people to watch, interact, and just contribute to the show in any way, we really appreciate it, and we thank all the people that have done so thus far this year and in seasons past. So, I think before... Well, do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait until we get to the preview section?
Let's wait till we get to the preview section.
All right, then we're going to start with the highlights and the recaps of the games versus Penn Manor and Lebanon. 2 home games happening at Gursky on October 6th and October the 13th. And both games, you don't want to say it, but expected to be Wilson victories. Penn Manor and Lebanon haven't been particularly strong the last few years. Lebanon will be dropping down to Section 3. Penn Manor still looking for their identity in the last few seasons. But you never want to overlook an opponent.
No.
But Wilson was able to get victories against Penn Manor and Lebanon. And Week 6, they welcomed the Comets to Gursky, and they were able to take care of business. Things started a little bit iffy at the beginning. Just that opening attempt at a drive with the snap going over Urig's head. But they rebounded quickly, settled down. Both games that we're going to be talking about, obviously very emotional.
Yeah.
And but the victories came, and that's what was most important to the bottom line of the program. So Wilson got the victory over Penn Manor back on October 6th, 35-12.
I know you had mentioned earlier that there are a number of streaks that are alive and well. This one continued the streak that Penn Manor has never beat Wilson.
Correct. I believe it's now 26-0.
Yeah. So, not one of the more major ones that gets talked about a lot. A few years ago, it was getting talked about a lot more.
Right.
But I know we've referenced that before, and just yet another statistic, I guess, that was kind of alive and well based on results from the last 2 weeks.
Right. For sure. So let's recap some of the statistics from that game. If I can find the right tab here. All right. So 35-12 was the final. Wilson came out on top in most of the statistical categories, as you'd expect. First downs, Wilson led 22-12. Rushing yards, Wilson dominated there, nearing the 200-yard mark with 193. Held Penn Manor under 100 with 87. Passing yards, Wilson also on top, 202 to Penn Manor's 145. And obviously, total yards, Wilson 395 to the Comets 232. Bulldogs actually didn't have the ball all that long. They were pretty efficient with it on offense, and they didn't need to have it. They were actually up 35-0 at one point, invoking the mercy rule before the Comets got a couple scores late in the fourth quarter against the junior varsity. Penn Manor held the ball for 27 minutes and 40 seconds. Third down, both teams struggled a bit. Wilson was 3 for 9, Penn Manor 2 of 11. And fourth downs, Wilson just 2 of 5, and Penn Manor 1 of 3. Luckily for the Bulldogs, they capitalized on 75% of the red zone opportunities, 3 out of 4, whereas they shut out Penn Manor, who didn't get a single point when they were inside the red zone. The Comets were 0 of 3.
Yeah, so, that was, when you look at some of the stats, some of them kind of are indicative of the scores, others aren't. But, like you said, the game, well, it got off to, kind of a crazy start. Wilson got going and kind of had things under control and was able to push the lead up to 35, get that clock running, and then, give up a couple scores late. But they were able to, able to get some things done and get the job done overall against Penn Manor. So.
For sure. So let's take a look at the highlights from the game versus Penn Manor. And do that right now. All right, so like I said, the game against Penn Manor started a tad slowly. It wasn't exactly the perfect start that Wilson had hoped for. They received the kick, and you'll see here in a moment that not exactly the best first drive. 3 and out. Yeah. Went into punt formation, and, well, it just wasn't the best. A little bit high for Uric, who couldn't get it. By the time he got to the ball, the Penn Manor defenders were all over him, and he was taken down at the 9. Luckily, the defense would hold, force a field goal, and it would be blocked by Andrew Weller, scooped up by Trevor Tenga, and he takes it the distance, going, I believe it was 89 yards is what they marked it. And Wilson gets a score. Eventually would get the extra point to go up 7-0. Then Uric throws to freshman Troy Corson, who rumbles all the way down for another one of the Bulldogs' touchdown. This put them up 14-0. And here's one from Iggy, who has been reaching the end zone a lot, not just this season, but over the course of his career, getting the team down to the 5 there. And then he caps it on, I believe, the ensuing play or one of the next plays, just making people miss.
And when they don't miss, he just makes sure they don't tackle him. Yeah, so pretty crazy. And, we're able to make the extra point. That was a good picture. That was pretty cool.
And that was actually Sam Chisholm, who was kicking because Frankie Cox was injured or was ill, was unable to kick against Penn Manor. And he didn't miss a beat. He hit all 5 of his extra points.
Right, yeah. So that was kind of cool to get to see him get in there and make the most of his opportunity.
Not only can Iggy do it on the ground, he can do it through the air. Leading receiver a few weeks, especially at the beginning of the season. Still doing it last week against Penn Manor. We're getting to see Eddie Ortiz in the backfield, which happens often.
Yeah, he's come alive the last couple of weeks in the backfield too. It's been pretty crazy. So
now this was I believe the untimed down right before halftime. Yes. Wilson wasn't able to score on that little interesting play before the half, but nice play from Uric DeCourson as well. Freshman Troy Corson was nearing 100 yards receiving in this game. He didn't quite get there. So just a few more highlights from the game against Penn Manor. Nice pocket presence from Uric. Throws it downfield to the aforementioned Corson. Unfortunately, in high school, when your knees are down, you're down, and he was just short of the goal line. Next play, Iggy walks in to extend the Wilson lead.
Yeah.
Just kind of a waltz.
Kind of the opposite of the one before where he had to run over a few people that we saw earlier in the game. He just there was no one to run over, and so he just kind of was able to get right in.
There we saw a sack by John Ventura, and there's a nice pitching catch from Uhrig to Chris Roberson. And then Abdul McFoy takes this one into the end zone, which I think was Wilson's last touchdown.
Right. And I think that Roberson catch may have been on 4th down. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was like, I think we were in that kind of no man's land.
And there is your final and the post-game huddle. So, the 2017 Week 6 final, 35-12, favor the Bulldogs. And some individual statistics here. Connor Uhrig was 14 of 21 for 202 yards and a touchdown. He also had 5 rushes for 20 yards. Iggy Reynoso, 21 carries for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He contributed 4 catches for 30 yards receiving as well. Abdul McFoy, you saw his touchdown, and he had 5 rushes for 32 yards and a catch for 5 yards. Freshman Troy Corson, 3 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. And senior Angel Martinez had 3 catches for 37 yards. I believe junior Greg Smith had 8 tackles. Is he?
I think so. I don't know for sure.
I thought he was a junior. Yeah, there's something for me to look up. And he was filling in for Trevor Hatley, who did not play in the game against Penn Manor because of the unfortunate circumstance surrounding his mom, Amy Hatley, passing away just a few hours beforehand. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and what the team and the community were able to do over the last week leading up to the Lebanon game, which Trevor did return for. Nick Johnson defensively had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss against Penn Manor. Eddie Ortiz, 2 tackles, one of them for loss, the sack you saw in the highlights. And then Chris Price, Quinn Sprout, and John Ventura each had a sack during the game as well. So, pretty good all-around effort. A couple hiccups here and there, but overall they got the job done.
Yeah, and all things considered, they were able to hit their stride, get the job done. They were able to get Iggy running, and I think it was Jeff Reinert a couple weeks ago posted like Iggy run, Iggy catch, Iggy score, something like that, and like
basically as Iggy goes, Wilson goes,
and you can't really argue against that. That's what it is right now, and if Wilson gets Iggy going like they were able to each of these weeks, as we'll see, then Wilson's generally going to have a good night.
Yep,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, as Iggy goes, Wilson goes. At least that's been the story pretty much all season. He's done it a little differently. He's been able to get it on the ground more recently. Not that he's not a threat in the air, but like early in the season, it was pretty much primarily through the air, whereas now he's kind of, not that he's necessarily the dual threat. He was always the dual threat, but, I think that passing game is developing, and it's helping Iggy get things going on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. And during that game, it was announced that Connor Uhrig, record getting to 3,000 passing yards in his Wilson career, moving up the record books, I believe, into the top 5 in program history. And Iggy Reynoso going over 4,000 career rushing yards, which moved him into top 5, maybe top 4 in Berks County history.
Yeah. Adding
more touchdowns as well, which moved him up the list into a spot that he would soon get even higher in the Lebanon game. So we actually caught up with the record setters and the offensive leaders, Connor Uhrig and Iggy Reynoso, following the victory against Penn Manor. All right, well, we're joined post-game now after Wilson's 35-12 victory over Penn Manor with senior running back Iggy Reynoso and senior quarterback Connor Uhrig. Congratulations on the victory, guys. I know it's nice to get another one in the win column now here in the middle of Lancaster Lebanon League play. Offense clicking tonight, both of you putting up superb stats. Iggy over 160 yards rushing, 165 total, 2 touchdowns. And during the night, you went over 4,000 career rushing yards. What's it like that one of those records you're getting this year? What's it like to 4,000, only, I think 4th person in Berks County to do so? What's it like to feel that record?
It feels the same. Nothing changes.
Nothing changes. It's just a title, huh? So, do you have your sights set on any bigger ones? I know Draco's been hyping up the touchdown record. You're inching closer to that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm not like, oh, I need to get it. I'm just.
You're aware of it,
Yeah.
but it's just another thing.
Yeah.
Connor, I wasn't aware of how close you were to 3,000 yards in your career, which is a big number at Wilson. You get now, I believe, into the top 5 in career yardage. What does it mean to you to be up there with, some big names in Wilson history?
Same as what Iggy said. I'm just like, it's cool, but I'm just focused on the team.
Yeah, individual accolades are nice, but in the end, it's all about the W's and the trophy case. So, now you're in the middle of this 2-game homestand. You got Lebanon coming in next week. Cedars have an electrifying offense. So, what do you think it's going to take you guys to go toe-to-toe with them next week?
Just bring the same energy we brought tonight and play it the same way.
They can't go toe-to-toe with us.
No? It was an emotional game. What was it like playing under these circumstances, playing as a family, as a team?
Just playing for our brother, Hatley, and what's happening with him. We just wanted to play our hearts out for him.
Is there an aspect of the game you're hoping to improve on in the second half of the season as we get started here?
Passing
game? Yeah. Seems like they're shuffling a lot of different wide receivers, a lot of different looks. Is it tough to get like a continuity down with a specific guy as you're trying to rotate in so many different receivers?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm getting a hang of it, of like just knowing who's faster and who's not, and how the routes are. But we're getting better. At knowing.
And how's it like for both of you playing with so many underclassmen in some pretty specific or important positions along the offensive line, secondary receiver? What have you guys been able to do with the young guys to get them ready to play on Friday nights?
Taking leadership and showing them how to do stuff. Really.
So what are you guys looking forward to these last few weeks?
Winning.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. All right, well, I don't got much else for you guys. Thanks you for joining us. Congratulations on the win, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so hopefully you were able to hear that. I don't know, we were having some issues here at the beginning, so hopefully you got the gist of the interview after the win versus Penn Manor with Iggy and Connor. If not, I apologize for that. But, not a lot to say, and I struggled with coming up with some great questions, but they're pretty much concise and to the point, saying hey, some of the teams just they can't hang and they just want to win.
Right. They basically kind of said essentially what we say from a different perspective. Like, they know what the expectation is going into that game against Penn Manor. They were able to get the job done. There's still work to do. Let's keep working and keep getting better because, they hope to have bigger and better things as the season goes on. And I think that's kind of what we got from both of them. That coming from them on nights where they both passed big milestones, like you said. But, as you kind of mentioned earlier in the show, there was a lot going on for a lot of the players and the coaches and the fans and everyone kind of involved a week and a half ago now. I think there was some kind of relief to get done, with the game and be done and move on to other things that are, important in a whole different way.
Yeah.
outside of a game.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So I think, sometimes, well, we don't need to get into that, but I think, the game was over and it was time to, address some other things. But, while that happened, they were kind of right. They were able to work on some things moving forward into the Lebanon game, and we saw that again. So.
Yeah, so let's wrap up the Penn Manor game, and let's talk about our player of the game for the win versus Penn Manor. And there it is. So we're going to go with senior quarterback this year, Connor Uhrig. First time, I believe, this season we were able to give it to him, not because he hasn't been playing really well. And Mike Drago's been talking about he's completing almost 75% in the league games. So off to a very, very strong start in the first 4 games in the LL League. And he had a very strong night versus the Comets, throwing for over 200 yards and the score, and moving himself up the career pass yardage list in program history. So Connor Jurgs, our player of the game, against Penn Manor.
Yeah, and like Iggy and Connor said after the game, passing game is something they still felt they needed to work on. We started to see it kind of start to round into shape. I feel like in that Penn Manor game, and that was definitely something they wanted to be going, keep getting better at, along with everything. But one of the areas where they felt they needed, or had the most room for improvement. So they were able to kind of get things going there. And again, we'll see in the Lebanon. In the Lebanon one, they were able to kind of take another step with that as well.
All right, so we're going to move on and talk about the Lebanon game now. Again, we kind of already touched on that the team was riding an emotional roller coaster with the passing of Amy Hatley the previous Friday, and they attended the services on Thursday before the game, and they wanted to show another way to pay their respects and honor the memory of her, and they came up with the helmet sticker idea, which they got a quick turnaround on, and it was very, very popular. I'll try to show it here, if this works. Yeah, there you go. It's posted on the football page, but it is a light blue football with the motto that they've been going with for the last 2+ years, simply Hatley Strong. So that was on the backs of the helmets of all the players on Friday night prior to the game versus Lebanon. And, well, thankfully for the Bulldogs, they were able to come out, and despite the emotions running high, they were able to come out victorious and take down the Lebanon Cedars, as we alluded to earlier, on Friday the 13th by a score of an interesting one, 46-11.
Yeah, kind of an odd score. You mentioned that earlier. It's kind of funny because I know last year when we were talking about the Lebanon game or previewing the Lebanon game and things, like you had to go way back into all kinds of archives to find stats, because we had not played Lebanon for a long time.
Yeah.
And the way things shaped up last winter or late winter, early spring, I don't think we're going to face them again for a long time. So,
right. Yeah, they hadn't been in the same section as Wilson since the 2-year cycle in the fall of 98 and fall of 99.
When it was Wilson, actually, that had dropped to Section 2.
Right, Wilson actually went down to 2 and played Lebanon for that 2-year cycle. Wilson lost to Lebanon in 1998 at Lebanon, where we were last year, and then they welcomed them in 99. And, of course, 99 was one of Wilson's better teams in the history of the program. Went undefeated in the regular season, made it into, I believe it was the Elite Eight of the states, where they got to play Becca High after beating Cumberland Valley in the district championship pretty handily. That was the likes of Pete Gilmore and Tony Cipolla.
Yeah, that was prior to my time at Wilson.
Yeah. I don't
remember. I do like to tell that story, though, that my dad was actually at the Wilson Manheim Central game at Gursky that year.
That one was closer than it should have been.
Yes, that was
Bulldogs trying to get a little payback from the year before.
He was thoroughly impressed by Pete Gilmore and Wilson football in general, but I believe Pete Gilmore kind of put on a show and got some.
When didn't he, though?
Got some much needed yards at the right time in that game as well.
For sure. So, back in 2017 against Lebanon, the 46-11 victory. Wilson pretty much controlled the entire game. There's a little bit of an issue at the beginning in the part of the first quarter. Some hiccups. I mean, Wilson was actually up 14-0, and you look
on 2 plays.
On 2 plays, 2 offensive plays. And we'll see this in the highlights. Great kickoff return by Abdul. Then there was a penalty, but ended up Urig hit Nick Johnson in the end zone for a 29-yard score. Bulldogs get the ball back. Next offensive play is a big Iggy touchdown run.
Right.
So 2 offensive plays, 2 touchdowns, 14-0. Then things just got a little slippery. Their quarterback, as a key salesman, is an electric junior. He keeps plays alive with his feet and his arm, and he was
in
able
every facet of the game. It was unbelievable.
He was able to move the team down.
We saw it last year. We knew it was coming, and it was still unbelievable.
Moved the team down. Now they got held. They kick a field goal, but on the next kickoff, it bounces off of a player's helmet. They recover. They advance and eventually score. Maybe. It's hard to tell in the video. I don't know if you could tell from the press box. When I was down on the field,
I could not tell from
how
where
are the
I was.
refs calling
Right.
this a touchdown? I couldn't see anything that was definitive to say he went in, but they gave him the benefit of the doubt. But it wasn't over there yet, so now it's 14-9. They go to try to kick the extra point. Low snap. Somehow eventually ends up in the hands of Salesman, probably the last guy you want to have the ball.
Right.
And he does his magic and lofts it in the end zone, and they get the 2-point conversion.
And
so,
so you know it's 14-11.
Right, so with a few minutes left in the first quarter, it's 14-11, and people are like, oh, here we go. They came out, that they had that high energy. They're stoked. They want to get out there. They want to have a great game. They start off so well, and then all of a sudden, just a couple plays, and it drops, and now you're only up by 3 to a team that everyone expects you to destroy. So that was it. The final score, 46-11. Obviously, the defense didn't give up.
They were able to
points,
regroup from there,
and the offense got a few more. So, and we'll go over that. We'll watch the highlights then. But team stats, first downs. This will show you how much Wilson was in control of the game. 23 first for the Bulldogs, just 7 for the Cedars. Rushing yards, Wilson 267 total. Lebanon just 25. Wilson also had more yards in the passing game, 181 to Lebanon's 152.
and many of those 152 came on one play for Lebanon as well.
There was one 50-yard,
Right.
right there, 1/3 of their passing came on one play. Total yards, Wilson 337 to Lebanon's 175. And it really was a ball control game.
Right, but that's interesting because in the first quarter it was not. I'd love to see what the time of possession was after the first quarter because we scored on the first 2 plays and then they kind of not that they were holding it, sustaining drives, but when it comes to, they were just taking a lot more time. So it was kind of interesting to see. I would be interested to see what that is.
We had it for 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
Right, yeah. So, I felt like, and 14-11, it's not that drastic there, of a, it's kind of opposite of what the time of possession is, obviously. But it's kind of interesting that they held the ball for 9 minutes in the first quarter and 5 minutes the rest of the game, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, that's I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's right. Now I'm looking at revised stats here. It looks like that changed. It was actually pretty even now.
Okay.
But there still exists the first quarter change that Lebanon had it for 9 minutes in the first quarter and Wilson just for 3.
Okay.
But
still.
Wilson had the ball for 10 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Right. So that
kind of right there's your flip.
Yep, exactly.
So, Lebanon had the ball more in the first half. Wilson had more in the second half, and it was pretty even overall. So it looks like those stats got updated since I did this stat sheet here, but not as huge a discrepancy as it looked upon first glance. But moving on, third downs, Wilson much better this week, 70%, 7 out of 10. Lebanon was held to just 2 out of 12. The Bulldogs converted 1 of 2 fourth downs. Lebanon did 3 of 5. In the red zone, Lebanon was perfect, 2 of 2. Wilson 4 of 5. So not awful. You like to be perfect there, but
I believe
4 of 5.
Wilson's fourth, or I believe Wilson.
The one they
stop
missed
was at the very end.
At the very end,
right,
yeah. The second team, second unit, or JVs were in. They weren't able to score, though. It was, I think, from the 1 yard line.
It was close.
Why don't we check out these highlights here, and so you can see everything that I just described. Let me pull up the recap here on Huddle that I put together, and we can take a look at how the Wilson-Lebanon game from Friday the 13th went down at Gursky Stadium in West Lawn. So we'll start here with some pictures and a reverse of the slides. I love Huddle. Is a great thing to work with.
It's kind of like the first game that hasn't been nice weather.
Yeah. It was disappointing that it was misting almost the entire game through the third quarter, and but you got to deal with it. That's the way it is. It was the first time this year, so
it wasn't too bad, but it just wasn't. We've been kind of spoiled with the rest of it.
So here's the opening kickoff. You're going to see Abdul take it, I believe, almost to the 30 of the Cedars. And I mentioned there was a penalty, I believe, on Lebanon. I think he takes it to the 34.
So
they have encroachment.
Right.
We get it to the 29. And then here you're going to see Uhrig hits Johnson in the end zone. Great pocket awareness here. Great protection for Uhrig. And he rolls out and throws it over a Lebanon receiver to Nick Johnson in the end zone. And then
so first offensive play of the game, touchdown.
Nice defensive stand by Wilson on their first series. Get the ball back, and what happens? Well, 44-yard touchdown by Iggy.
Yeah.
Untouched. I don't think anyone got him till the goal line.
Right.
And it was I think he was in the end zone when he got hit.
So
yeah. You're going to see this a lot as well, and we talked about it a little bit. Well, here's the big pass that sets up their score, their field goal, I should say. And a little bit of miscommunication in the secondary gets them down inside the Wilson 20. But they do not score. They get the field goal here. Excuse me, they do not score a touchdown.
Which is a nice kick. You know?
It was a very nice kick. Yeah. Next play, the kickoff, right off of the face mask to a Lebanon defender.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like if our coaches wouldn't have gone out and explained, they may have given them the spot at the 10 or 5 yard line when they can't advance the ball. Now, if Wilson had, this is the crazy play, so we'll look at this. So, yeah, all the way back to the 25, and then he just heaves it in the end zone.
Yeah, and it's just, but that was it. That was the extent of the damage.
Right.
Wilson got the ball back, drove down the field, and Iggy would get his second touchdown of the night right here. And he would plow over some people to get into the end zone.
Yeah, nothing was stopping him.
He's now one away from Jason Reinhardt's Berks County record of total career touchdowns. So he's sitting at, I believe, 69, I think, right now.
Yeah.
A nice pass from Uhrig to Isaiah Gilmore.
Yeah.
And now Wilson's on defense here, but you're going to see a nice sack by Quinn Sprout and his defenders. Then on the very next play, we get another sack from senior defensive end Chris Price by the shoelaces. And then Lebanon had a tough time punting all night as well, which set up Wilson with good field position. And this is the one.
This is nice.
This is he takes care of so many defenders on this play to get into the end zone for his Berks County career tying touchdown run.
Right. Number 70, correct?
I believe that was 70, yes. And here, right before halftime, you're going to see Salesman lob it to Andrew Weller. And if you recall, Andrew Weller does not play for the Cedars. So Wilson goes into halftime, able to get a field goal from Frankie Cox. And I believe they were up 30-11 at halftime.
I think so.
And now you see the defense coming on. Here's the sack right here. Bulldogs are able to convert on the next offensive series. And there is the record-setting career touchdown number 71 for Iggy Reynoso with at least 3 games to go for him. And another swarming team defense sack there. I believe Magalotti was in on that one. And I think this one you're going to see Trevor Hatley just unblocked up the middle and takes down Salesman. Back on offense for the Bulldogs. Now we get to see Abdul McFoy take a little swing pass, little flare. And he'll get to contribute more as we turn to the fourth quarter. And he gets a nice rush here. Gets them almost to the red zone. And then he'll finish it a few plays later with a touchdown, which will end the night for any remaining starters that the Bulldogs had out there. And we'll get to see here the defense still putting on pressure, recovering a fumble, allowing the Wilson backups and JV some more time. And we'll get to see some nice running from senior Hunter Regal in the final minutes of the game. And once they weren't able to convert, we get to see how Wilson got the mercy rule, and that would be via a tackle for loss in the end zone by Greg Smith and Chandler Fern. And that would do it. Post-game with Coach Dahms. And Week 7 final, 46-11. The Bulldogs get the victory.
Yeah, so it was nice, like we mentioned, there were a couple hiccups in the first quarter, but they were able to, ride that out and get right on track and get things done. It was an impressive game from Iggy and Yurig even on offense. They were able to get those things done. Yurig was able to get that pass right away to Johnson on the first play, and then you saw Iggy just wasn't going to be stopped. And I feel like we say that every week.
Yeah.
When watching his highlights.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. You just watch him like he has one of those runs like he did against Lebanon there, where like maybe 4, 5, 6 guys had a shot, and he just wasn't going down.
Right.
So, more of like what we said before. As Iggy goes, this team goes, and that and that's not a knock on the team. That's more. I'm making that more as a statement about like Iggy just is good enough that he has that kind of influence on this team's success.
For sure. So we actually, I had a video after the game to hear Coach Dahms address the team after the tumultuous week that had happened, and it was emotional as you would expect. And he had something special to do when all was said and done. All right, and they were on to Township just like that. Lebanon's over. Time to move on. So we'll be doing that momentarily. Just a few more things to touch up with Lebanon. And we do have 2 interviews here. We'll make sure that we got the audio hopefully fixed here. We were able to catch up with, I believe, people we haven't talked to yet. I
don't think so.
And 2 players, and then Coach Dahms. We haven't heard from Coach Dahms since the beginning of the season when we're doing our previews, so we will do these interviews here back to back. First up, we get to talk to junior tight end and inside linebacker Nick Johnson and senior offensive lineman and defensive lineman Nick Drake.
All right, we're joined here post-game after Wilson's victory over Lebanon with Nick Johnson and Nick Drake. So thanks for joining us, guys. How's it feel to get that win?
Amazing. It's been an emotional week, so it's great to pull out a win. Now we're prepared for Manheim Township.
Yeah, I know, we didn't want to ask anyone the last few weeks about that because it was looming large. We know you want to take it 1 week at a time, but now it's upon you. Get to focus on the Blue Streaks. But before we do that, let's talk about the week that you guys just had. What was it like this week being together as a team after the unfortunate incident last week? Take us through how things went this week.
Really just bonded together. Like, we really all rallied behind each other and made sure we were just there for everyone, which brought us closer and closer and closer, which is going to help us on the field.
Yeah, our team chemistry was good to begin with, but this really brought us close together. Had a lot of conversations. We made sure everybody wasn't sad or felt alone, so we just wanted to make sure everybody was okay. We felt like we did a good job with that, along with going out to practice with a mindset that we still have a game to play. So we memorized the game plan and we just came out to play with the Hatley family in our hearts.
Excellent. The team bonding went over well. A great win tonight, and you guys start off really strong offensively. 2 touchdowns on the game's first 2 play. You receiving end of the first one, and you blocking for Iggy all night. 4 touchdowns for Iggy now sets the career record for touchdowns at 71. Pretty great.
We still have some time left too.
That's right. The season's not over yet. And Nick, well, I should say Johnson. Nick, you won't know who I'm talking to. Johnson, 4 yards short of 100. Very close. 6 for 96, but you got the score.
That stings.
So that's good. But rushing Drake overall, the team was over 200. I think closing in on 300. So another great night from the offensive line. 267 overall. So
It's good to hear.
That's our number one goal, to get the ground game going.
That just opens up the passing game.
Absolutely. So do you guys think that's going to be the mantra heading into Township next week?
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to need to work our butts off to control that line of scrimmage next Friday night.
Yeah, Township's going to be one of the best teams we play all season, and starting on the ground, that would definitely, like he said, open up the pass game, especially on those moments.
Now, I've been asking everyone that we interview, what's it been like this season playing with so many young guys? Now, you were thrown in the fray last year as a sophomore, so kind of put us in their shoes. What are they feeling, and how have you guys taken them under your wing to, lead them to a successful season?
I think, a lot of the sophomores and even freshmen that get thrown in there, you can tell they're nervous, but all, Isaiah Gilmore, Joey, and myself, we've all been there to talk them through it and everything and talk them down. It's part of the team thing. We've all been there for each other to help them through it, even though how nervous they can be or how anxious to get it done.
And the number one thing with the young kids is to stay positive, because if you get down on them, then their confidence will drop early. And I've helped a lot of the younger linemen, because we do have a lot of younger kids, especially. We have 2 sophomore starters and a junior.
Keller and Venino, and Ventura's played this year.
Keller, not Keller. What's his name? Mike
Klein. Yep.
So we just have to keep them positive. Don't get their confidence down, because once it builds it up, they can be great football players.
So you are our jersey sake for the night. Wilson winning 68th straight in the league. What is the one thing that you think has to happen against Township next week to get the number 69?
Establish the ground game.
Ground game, all about.
If we don't establish the ground game, we're in big trouble.
And we got to stop all their weapons on offense.
Like Saladay,
MG, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but
Bender, Reese Bender. Yeah, they've got a lot of weapons, and it'll be interesting to see you guys head down to Neffsville next week. We'll obviously be there. Last thing, a couple weeks ago, Nick, I said that you've kind of become one of the leaders on this team. It's unusual to see an underclassman take such a big role, but you have become a vocal leader. How has that come about? How have you become one of the guys that they're turning to for leadership on and off the field?
I think honestly, all the credits to the seniors. They've done a great job, but they've also accepted me stepping up in that role, which has boosted my confidence to step up even further into that role. So
he leads by example as well. His work ethic's amazing in the weight room. He never takes days off. On the field, he's always hitting hard, going 100% every play. So a lot of the younger and even older kids look up to him.
All right, well, I don't want to hold you guys up anymore. Thanks for joining us here. Congrats on the win, and we'll look forward to seeing you at Township next Friday.
Thank you.
All right, so it was nice to talk to 2 new interviewees for the Bulldog Hour, at least post-game this season. And same thing goes here for our next one. Obviously, didn't need any introduction, but we're going to talk with Coach Dahms following the win against Lebanon.
All right, we're joined post-game here with Coach Dahms after Wilson's victory over Lebanon. Coach, we're now at the point in the season that everyone's been talking about for a long time, facing Manheim Township. What is the biggest threat to Wilson's winning streak right now? What is the aspect of Township's game that is most threatening?
They have a really well-balanced team. They've got a great quarterback. They got a real good running back. They got a really big stud linebacker and some good other players. They're seniors. They're very experienced. We're going to have to play very well. We're going to have to play mistake-free, and we're going to have to click on all cylinders. On paper, they're probably better than us. So we're going to see if we can find some weaknesses, or we're going to have to play very emotional and play good, solid football. And it's going to be a great game. Big crowd.
What aspect of your team have you seen the most improvement in so far that you can say we're definitely better than week 1?
We're making fewer mistakes. We're still making too many mistakes, but we're making fewer mistakes. Our offensive line, I think, has gotten better defensively. We're playing better. Our secondary still, we knew that was going to happen because they're so young. Right now they should be playing their 8th or 9th JV game instead of their 8th or 9th varsity game, but they got pressed into service, so we get better. Hopefully it's good enough.
Is this one of, or if not the youngest team that you've had as a group of starters in your years as the head coach?
Oh my God! I mean, for a sophomore to start with for us is really unusual, and we have 5 of them, I think, starting, and a freshman. And it's just, it makes it very difficult. I'm concerned when the chips are down, are they going to be ready? Because when you're playing seniors, they've played 2 years of high school ball. They played JVs. They played some mop-up role and maybe even some quality time. These guys have got 1 season under their belt. And so there's a lot of learning, a lot of mistakes to hopefully aren't going to be made, but they just got to keep getting better.
And now that we're able to talk more about Township, how hard has it been to keep the team focused? What went over with your team over the last week? Did that help to refocus them a little bit, not look ahead? What was the mentality over the last week?
The emotion with Amy Hatley's death, was really hard. We were like on a roller coaster emotionally all week, and channeling it and getting them to focus on this game and play solid football, which I think they did a really good job of. I don't think anybody was even thinking about Manheim Township. Now, I've been thinking of it since there was 5 minutes left in the game. Going to try to figure out, we'll put together a game plan, and then it's up to them to execute it.
Now, tonight was the 68th straight win in the league. Obviously, we're going for 69 next week, but also we're able to secure the non-losing season, so another one of those streaks goes on. But we also saw a few personal records broken over the last couple of weeks. And what does it say about Iggy to get to 71 career touchdowns and set a new Berks County mark? What has it been like to coach him over the last few years?
He's a nice kid. He's a physical kid. He's got the tools to play the game. He's struggled a little bit because our offensive line is so young. I mean, if he was playing behind a veteran offensive line, who knows what he could be doing? He's doing that, and when you have 2 sophomores starting on the offensive line and a couple juniors, and he's still playing solid football. He's going to need a big game for us next week. I mean, he pretty much carried us through the early games, and now everybody else is starting to play a little better and doing some things well. So hopefully, we're going to need some balance, but we need them to focus on him and still have him get his yards, and that'll open up our passing game, and hopefully we can get another W.
The team seems to finally be getting close to full health. Most of the key guys are back. I know Matt Fry was out again tonight, but we got to see the return of Gilmore the last few weeks, and now Joey Fox got to play. What does it mean to have some of those guys, albeit underclassmen, back in the secondary?
It just gives us a lot of flexibility. I don't know if you watched tonight. We played some 5 defensive back sets, and we were at a point a couple of weeks ago where we couldn't play anything but 3 defensive back. And those guys weren't even the regulars. So it gives us a lot more flexibility. We can do a lot more things. We can roll people back and forth from corner or up to linebacker. It's a good time to start getting healthy.
All right, well, I think that's all we got for you. So good luck next week at Manheim Township, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you again in a few weeks.
Well, hopefully I'm smiling.
All right, so we got to hear from Coach Dahms following the Wilson victory over the Cedars on Friday the 13th, 46-11. And we just got a few things here left to wrap up the Week 7. Some individual statistics for you. And we'll start with the quarterback, Connor Uhrig, 15 of 19. Again, there, another very efficient night for him, 181 yards and a touchdown. Iggy, 19 rushes for 161 yards and 4 touchdowns. Abdul McFoy, 6 rushes for 47 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 24 yards. Nick Johnson, so close, as you heard in the interview, to getting to 100 yards receiving. He had 6 for 96 and the score to open the game. Hunter Regal, 10 rushes for 29 yards. Freshman Troy Corson, 5 tackles from a safety spot And we saw him in the highlights. We mentioned him that he's really been starting to catch fire. Senior defensive end Eddie Ortiz, 5 tackles, 3.5 for loss, and 3 sacks against Lebanon. And he, I believe, will be approaching single season and career marks. Not saying he's going to be in first place when all is said and done, which I believe belongs to Austin Rosa from just a few years ago.
I don't know.
But Ortiz is definitely climbing the ranks there in program history for sacks. Again, the only asterisk on that being that they have only started documenting them, at least at Wilson, in the last 10 or so years, I think. Maybe not sacks, but tackles for loss and some of the other defensive statistics. I'll have to check the Tradition Club stats book, and maybe I can update you on that on the next show, where Eddie is in terms of season sacks and career sacks. So we had a discussion again about player of the game. It's always tough to choose because usually week in and week out, both Uric and Reynoso can be the player of the game.
Yeah.
And we've tried to, share the love. We've given it to Nick Johnson now twice. He could have had it tonight, honestly. Last week, Trevor Tenga had the return touchdown on the blocked field goal. And there's plenty of players that have stepped up and put up some great stats. But I know this is his 3rd time, and we don't like to always do repeats, but when you're playing the way he has, putting up those numbers and setting county records, how are you not the player of the game? So for the 3rd time this year, senior running back Iggy Reynoso is our player of the game for Lebanon. Again, I just mentioned it, but he had 19 rushes for 161 yards and 4 touchdowns. Those 4 touchdowns put him at number 1 in career touchdowns scored in Berks County, and he's still got at least 3 games to go.
Yeah, so I feel like the picture you have up, for those of you that can see it, where he's dragging pretty much the Lebanon defense, through to a touchdown. It's one of those where I said we see this all the time, and it's hard because, like you mentioned, with Iggy's contribution to the team, like he's a vital part every week. But this is as much a single game as just what his contribution over time has been as well. It's been pretty amazing. I was talking to you before the show today, watching some NFL games. My son, every time somebody ran the ball, he would yell Iggy Reynoso. So I think it's pretty clear who my son's favorite is. That puts Iggy in pretty high regard because the only other person he says like that by name is Saquon Barkley. Yeah, when he just likes to run from one side of the room to the other, dive, and yells, "Saquon touchdown!" Right.
So now it's Iggy Reynoso.
Yeah, he yells Iggy Reynoso like the band does after every carry. So Iggy, you are in high regard with my son.
Probably not the only
you and Saquon
young kid. Probably not the only young kid that does so. So that's cool for sure. And this was brought to my attention now just before we started the show tonight, but I feel that it's something that we probably should touch on. Justin actually sent it to me, and just a couple hours ago it was posted that the Wilson Education Foundation had their back-to-school bash fundraiser, and they were able to award the first ever Wilson Legacy Award, and it just so happens to go to one Mr. Doug Dahms. So you may have heard of him. Yeah,
and just the kind of, and they'll explain in the video, but it's not just on the football field accomplishments, but obviously that's a part of the story, but his accomplishments and his contributions to the Wilson community and the school are just I don't want to say unprecedented. That might not be the right word, but just like
over 4 decades of
unbelievable
service to the Wilson School District, the Wilson community, and the football team.
Yeah. So
and we're gonna watch the video that they posted honoring Coach Dahms as the Wilson Legacy Award winner, the inaugural award.
Doug Dahms has impacted the Wilson community for more than 42 years as a teacher, coach, and community leader. Doug believes every day is a new adventure and that the kids are the reason he's here. On Doug's downtime, he reaches out to the youth in our community with his team to teach flag football, instilling love for the game into some of Wilson's youngest students. Doug leads a trip to Jamaica every year that leaves his students' lives changed forever. Doug's commitment to excellence, both on and off the field, has left a legacy that will last a lifetime.
He's been a great leader, a great mentor. All the nuances of how to be an exceptional leader.
He sets an example. He's just really good at coaching. Like, he tells you what you have to do, and he's really good at explaining things. So it's really easy for kids to comprehend and understand what he's trying to get across.
I've learned from a lot of people. I've learned a lot of things, what right things to do and wrong things to do. And with him, I've learned primarily the right things to do.
He always gets the best out of all the players every day, cracking jokes with us, and he knows what he has to do to push the team. And every week he's just there for us.
I would say in my whole career as an athlete, I've been pretty blessed with some great coaches, and Dahms is definitely one of them. He is a very intelligent man. You definitely learn that from any experience you've had or conversation you've had with him. And not only is he teaching you the rules in the game of football, but he also teaches you how to apply them to your everyday life.
It gives the Wilson community great pride to present the Legacy Award to Doug Dahms. Over the years, he's impacted thousands in the Wilson community and beyond by helping them become not just better students or better athletes, but better people. To quote Doug, "My success is the student's success." Congratulations, Doug Dahms, this year's recipient of the Wilson Legacy Award.
All right, so like I said, that was just posted just like an hour before we started here, and I just thought it was prudent to get it out on this episode of the show. So congratulations to Coach Dahms for winning the inaugural Wilson Legacy Award.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just a testament to the things that he has done on the football field for the student athletes, but also for his students and Wilson as a school and community. So.
All right, we're going to move on now and do the previews for weeks 8 and 9, and obviously we talked about it a lot at the intro, and then obviously after the Lebanon game, this came to mind, but week 8 has been the showdown that everyone's been excited for and anxious for, and that is Manheim Township. Whenever the Bulldogs play Manheim Township, especially over the last decade, the streak comes to mind because, this is the team that it all started with. Not the team that we got our first win against.
No, kind of the opposite.
No, this is the last team to beat Wilson in the regular season as an LL Section 1 team. You have to actually go all the way back up to nearly a decade ago, to the day that it happened. And so we'll just, we did a little thing, I think, 2 or 3 shows ago where we looked back at the fall of 1993. That was the last time Wilson had started 1-2. So we decided, let's take a look back at the autumn of 2007, as that was the last time Wilson lost a league game. And you see on the left is the Red and Eagle article from that defeat. Manheim Township beat Wilson in Neffsville, and I believe it was 27-6 or something like that. It was very close at halftime. Wilson may have actually led at halftime, like 7-6 or something like that. They lost 26-7 or 27-6, but they weren't able to get anything going. Again, this was a 2017 that actually finished 7-3 and then went 2-1 in the playoffs, very close to making the district championship game, albeit that, which we've discussed multiple times, that questionable call against Harrisburg in the district Final Four. And you'll notice that who the president was on this, since the last Wilson loss, we've had a president for a full 2 terms.
I know.
Like, when I was going through this and we talked about it, I was like, how crazy it to think that, one, in 93, the last time Wilson was off to a 1-2 start, Bill Clinton had just become president, within the last year. And now the last time Wilson lost, George W. Bush was president, meaning Wilson didn't lose a single league game while Barack Obama was president. That's a full 2-term presidency.
Yeah, I know we threw some of these out there too. Like, I didn't live in the area.
Right.
Well, literally in the area at the time. I was living in Puerto Rico at the time.
Yeah, you were.
I was living on the Coast Guard base in Puerto Rico, teaching down there.
As I point out here, you weren't a teacher at Wilson when this happened. I lived in Indiana when this happened. I was not up to speed with Wilson football at the time, and something that maybe is a little bit more important to us, but the Phillies were not World Series champions when this all went down. It was a year away from happening. So kind of, I mean, that kind of puts some things into perspective. It's not as big of a shock maybe as the 1993 one was, when you're talking multiple decades, but here we are almost a full decade later. And although my favorite part of this, and it comes up every year in the preseason, and this is from one of our buddies, one of our contributors, and one of our donators from Eastern PA football, Andy Herr. Every year when it comes time for Scholastic football to start, he likes to remind everyone that the last time Wilson lost a league game, the seniors were in so-and-so grade. And I believe this year he was telling everyone, well, the current Wilson football seniors were in second grade the last time the Bulldogs lost a league game. And that led me to say, hey, why don't we take a look at what some of the high school seniors looked like the last time Wilson lost a league game. So through my contacts, I was able to get some of the Mighty Mite pictures of a few of the Wilson seniors. So here you can see Peter Schuckman, Hunter Regal, Trevor Hatley, and Nick Drake. They're trading cards from perhaps maybe their first year of organized football, at least in full
Quite
pads.
possibly, yeah.
You're talking, that Mighty Mite level is the introduction for many of these to the full contact world of football. And, they look the same, right? Identical.
Yeah,
no real changes.
You say it. I'm like, I only could pick out one. That's not true. I was able to pick out another one, too.
Well, we're not done there. No, it's just not just those four. We also have, the quarterback, Connor Urig, here as well, unable to cram them all together, so he gets his own, but, you just treat the quarterbacks differently.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's right.
So, interesting to look back on what the seniors looked like 10 years ago in the fall of 2007. And, since then, they haven't seen a Wilson team lose a section game, which I know obviously their number one goal is for that to continue. And a couple more provided to me from practices and the games, and you can see some of the players suiting up. And the old Van Reed stomping grounds there behind the high school and what was Central, where they don't even practice anymore. Now they're over with us at West.
Again, schools that I don't think West didn't exist at that time.
Right, you're right. West did not exist in 2007. West opened its doors in 2010 when Wilson moved to the middle school system. And while this goes back just 7 years, not a full 10, I did think it was cool when these pictures were provided to me of the current seniors and some juniors as well in a backyard on a play set with members of the 2010 football team. You'll see Zach Zweizig and Tyler Beck in these pictures, and among them, Nick Drake is in here. Trevor Hatley's in here. There perhaps may even be some of the sophomores. I think Gibbles might be in here. I see a Raider. I see Schuckman. So, you can point out a bunch of the Foxes, I believe, are also in these pictures. So it's a good time looking back on, 7 to 10 years ago, what these current Wilson football players were doing as Little League players. So I thank all the parents for providing these to me. It will be a shock to some of the players when I start sending these out on the Instagram. I fully intend to do that, and I'm very excited for the responses.
Yes, exactly.
Because I'm sure it'll be great. So, that about does it for that. And, this Friday, October 20th, Wilson's traveling to Nessville to take on the Blue Streaks. Not a lot to say that hasn't already been said by all the other media out there, but Manheim Township's good. They tripped up once, I believe, was that week 3, I think it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, they fell to Governor Mifflin. A little bit uncharacteristic. Mifflin was coming off a bad loss to Calico. They rebounded in a big way.
I think Township was missing some guys that night as well. But yeah, since then, and even before then, they've been rolling. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much. I mean,
they're going to be ready to go.
MG, Saladay, Bender, you heard mentioned during the show. Big linemen, offense and defense, they're going to be ready to take care of business. They thought they had us last year, and Wilson was able to get it out, the 17-10 victory over the Blue Streaks during Week 8 in 2016. They thought they had us, but they had, like Coach told us after the game, Coach Dahms said to us, we have to go there next year, and they have everyone back.
Yep.
So
and that's pretty much how it shapes up for Friday night. So, Wilson has their work cut out for them. But again, we've seen this, not this, but we've seen similar situations where teams have lined up, and you're getting your great shot. You're getting everybody's best shot every week, I should say. And we know Township's best shot is going to be really good. That's kind of the key. But Wilson, we mentioned early in the season, got off to not necessarily the fast start that everybody wanted, but they've been able to work on some things and get some things going, and now it's time to keep getting better this week. Coach Dahms said it in the interview. It's no secret. We've talked about it. As Iggy goes, this team goes. They knowing that everyone knows it. They know it. We know it. We have to be able to get Iggy successful in this game, regardless of the fact that they know that's our goal.
For sure.
And does that not sound like, I know things have changed over time in terms of the Wilson offense, but basically, it's essentially Wilson's going to run the ball. Everyone knows they're going to run the ball. Can Wilson run the ball is going to dictate this game, and it's going to be interesting. So, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the guys are going to be up for the challenge, and I'm hopeful for this week.
This is the 46th all-time meeting between the schools. Wilson holds the edge, leading 35 wins, 9 losses, and 1 tie. The last Wilson win, like I mentioned last year, 17-10 on October 21st at Gursky. And as already been stated, last Manheim Township win was 26-7 on October 26, 2007 at Manheim Township. The Blue Streaks stand at 6-1 overall, beating Central Dauphin in Week 1 and Southwestern in Week 2 before they lost to Governor Mifflin in Week 3. And since then, they've rolled out 4 straight victories over Hempfield, Conestoga Valley, McCaskey, and recently Warwick. They host us this week before heading to Lebanon in Week 9 and closing the season at home versus Penn Manor in Week 10. So I don't think there's much else to say about the Township.
We don't really have to preview this one as much. But, I mean, everybody knows. Everybody knows this is the big game that everybody's had circled on their calendar. Like you said, since that game ended last year. Wilson knows what's coming, and Township wants another shot. And you know what? If Wilson wants to be the best,
you got to beat the best.
You got to fend off all those shots, right? I think of we don't really bring up boxing analogies all that often, but that guy who's the number one guy, he's got those title fights all the time, right? And so, hey, we've been that number one guy for a long time. We've won a lot of title fights. It's time to win another one, right? That's basically what this week comes down to. So, you know what? They know what they need to do. Need to go out and execute. So, I'm confident that our guys are going to rise to the challenge.
Following the game against Manheim Township in Week 8, Wilson will head to Hempfield in Week 9 on Friday, October 27th to take on the Black Knights. Hempfield, pretty strong, maybe stronger than people thought to start the year. They were inconsistent to start, 2-2. They opened with a win over Dallastown, 38-14. They lost at Exeter, 27-20. Before beating Central York 24-21 and then falling to Manheim Township 56-0. I believe the Black Knights were down as many as 6 starters for that game. I'm not sure if it was injury or suspension. I believe it was, though, more health related than it was for disciplinary reasons. But they got beat up by Township pretty good, 56-0. But since then, they've been able to rattle off 3 victories to get to 5-2, identical to Wilson.
Right, including beating Warwick at Warwick and then putting up 52 points against McCaskey.
Right.
So
they have the playmakers.
Right, they've got things going.
They're no slouch offensively. They have a solid team this year. Perhaps better than what we saw last year at Wilson. This is the 35th all-time meeting between the teams, with Wilson leading 24-10. Last year, the Bulldogs beat the Black Knights 38-7 on October 28th at Gursky. And last time Hempfield won was even before Township beat us in 2007. Hempfield last beat us in 2005, 56-28. And at that point, Coach Dahms was assistant Coach Dahms.
Yeah.
So Doug has not lost to Hempfield as head coach.
Right.
So 5-2, no slouch, back-to-back games on the road to attempt to continue the league streak and look for a 10th straight unbeaten championship. They'll need to do that by beating Township and Hempfield in their own stadiums.
Yeah, and the work's cut out for them the next 2 weeks, but it's no surprise to anyone. Like I said, you've seen us sitting there all year. We're glad we haven't had the hiccups before it. And you know what, they know the job, and they're gonna rise to the occasion. I hope we have lots of interviews on our next show in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Because interviews means wins.
Yeah.
Right?
If this show runs long like it is tonight, it's because we had a lot of people to talk to, a lot of things to address, and that's always good for the program. Before we get out of here, just some milestones to touch on. Coach Jeremy Palm, the quarterback coach, offense coordinator, earned his win 150 versus Penn Manor, so congratulations to him. He's obviously up to 151 now. And the win versus Lebanon was Coach Dahms' 134th as head coach. He needs just 18 more to pass John Gursky's record of 151. He's also just 2 wins away from 400 with the program. He racked up 264 as an assistant and now the 134 as head coach. So, if all goes as we hope, that will happen this season.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to talk about it on the next show, right?
Yeah, hopefully that would be
awesome.
That would be wonderful, because that means that Wilson beat Township and Hempfield, which is what we want. And another big milestone, this one for the program as a whole. I believe 3 or 4 years ago, Wilson won game number 500, which is a big thing in the state of Pennsylvania. Well, the next victory they get, whether it's in week 8, 9, 10, or whenever, will be the program's 550th
Wow.
in its history. So big things from individuals, players, coaches, and the program in general. I do want to mention that this Thursday, be sure to follow EasternPAFootball.com, Bruce Badgley and Andy Herr on Twitter. I will be a guest once again on Fresh Set of Downs, live from PJ Wellahan's on Thursday evening at 6:30 to talk about...
I wonder what they want to talk about this week.
To talk about Week 8 in Pennsylvania Scholastic football in the District 3 area.
They just brought it up every time we've talked to them this year, right?
So, yeah, I'm sure they're going to want to talk about the Wilson-Manheim Township game, and I will indulge them as far as I can, but I do not pick the Wilson game ever. I think I did go on the record for the Mifflin game, but I'm not going to pick Mifflin.
Well, they kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pick Mifflin. And that's not going to happen. I'm always going to pick
Right,
Wilson.
yeah, what do they think is going to happen?
Well, don't even ask me, because I'm picking Wilson. It doesn't matter. I could just talk about,
They could be playing the Dolphins.
I'll give as much coach speak as I can Thursday night and just say, how good Manheim Township is, but in the end, I'm still picking Wilson.
Right.
I'm not picking against the Bulldogs. No way. So I do want to make sure that you guys know about the Fresh Set of Downs from Eastern PA Football, and Bruce and Andy do a great job. So if you want to hear more from me, tune in on, I believe they do it through Periscope on Twitter on the official Eastern PA Football account. Again, like Wilson Bulldogs and the Bulldog Hour fan pages on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. During the games, we got updates with photos, post-game interviews we do, and all those great things. And once again, thank you to all of our sponsors and contributors, Andy, Matt, our anonymous donor, and my dad and May's Sandwich Shop for all that they have done these first few years of the show. Anything to add from you?
No, I just we preached a lot of things early in the season, and I think they're starting to check those boxes, and it's time to put it all together now. We've reached that point. It was week 8, right? I guess
week 8. Yeah.
So week 8, time to put it together. So these are the exciting ones. So good luck, and we'll be there. Kind of doing our, I don't want to say jobs, but doing our thing, not jobs related to like team performance or anything like that. But we'll be there to kind of watch it unfold and hopefully get some interviews after the game.
Yeah, we'll have the Township game covered, the Hempfield game covered, and we'll be back here 2 weeks from tonight to break it all down and recap the final game of the regular season. And hopefully we'll also have a look ahead towards the District 3 6A playoffs. We were going to go over power ratings tonight, but obviously it's this early. Like even the next show, it's still a week before.
As our buddy Mike Drago put, they're probably not accurate because people don't have.
I think only one school hadn't updated last I checked.
Someone did bring up a good point to him this week. That is it distorted because some schools don't enter their out-of-state games. Like McDevitt played a New York team, so their games are going to be different.
They also don't count, though. Yeah, they literally don't count in the power rating.
That's what I mean. So like when you see like, oh, this team has only entered 6 games this week. So but anyway, that's not really the case for.
Because the
for
one
6A, I don't think that's really
entered. The only one that hadn't entered as of this afternoon when I looked was York County Technology School or something like that, which I don't even know who they play. So it surprised me that they're a 6A.
Well, see, so they probably have to count because they draw from all the districts of York County, so they probably have to count every kid.
I got you.
Because that's basically like BCTC here. Like that. So they have one. That would be like BCTC having their own school.
Interesting.
So you can imagine how that would be difficult.
Yeah.
Classification-wise.
But the Lancaster Lebanon League looking pretty good with Manheim Township, Wilson, and Hempfield, I believe, in the 3, 5, and 7 positions or something like that. So obviously a lot of football left to play. Wilson plays both those schools. We still got Cumberland Valley playing Harrisburg at the end of the year. I'm not sure Cumberland Valley has played CD East yet. So
I think CD East usually play late in the year.
They already played CD East, beat them.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So
just crazy that
mid-10, we talked about it
every episode.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's all for us on episode 3-7. We'll be back 2 weeks from tonight for episode 3-8. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bulldog Hour. For Justin Raffoff and the Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays, and remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.